And let me be absolutely clear from the start, this is not about being rude, bitter, or angry. This is about waking up. This is about boundaries. This is about reclaiming your time, your energy, and your worth. Because somewhere along the way, you were taught to be nice. You were taught to smile when you're uncomfortable. You were taught to say yes when you really meant no. You were taught to give second chances, third chances, fourth chances. Because that's what good women do. You were taught that being kind is more important than being respected. And now here you are, burned out, resentful, confused about why you keep getting treated like an afterthought. Let me tell you why. Because you've been kind to the wrong people for far too long. You're out here giving gold to people who don't even deserve bronze. You're giving time, attention, softness, and grace to men who haven't earned 1 inch of that kindness. So yes, stop being kind to men who haven't earned it. Your kindness is a gift, not a requirement. And your time is valuable. Your heart is precious. And yet you keep pouring your best into people who are giving you the bare minimum. You keep showing up fully, only to be met with indifference. You keep being understanding, patient, flexible, hoping they'll eventually treat you the way you deserve. But listen to Meg, you're not a rehabilitation center for emotionally unavailable men. You are not a second mother. You are not a therapist. You are not an emotional punching bag. And you are not someone's second option while they figure themselves out. Stop romanticizing potential. Stop interpreting silence as mystery. Stop accepting confusion as a form of chemistry. Because deep down, you know the truth. You know when someone is breadcrumbing you. You know when someone is only kind to you when it's convenient. You know when someone is taking and taking, and never giving. So here's your wake-up call. Being kind is not the same as being self-sacrificing. You are not here to shrink yourself just so a man can feel bigger. You are not here to tone it down so someone else can feel comfortable. You are not here to play small, to wait your turn, or to tolerate half-effort love. Enough is enough. Stop rewarding bad behavior with your best behavior. If someone is inconsistent with you, be unavailable to them. If someone gaslights you, believe yourself more than you believe their excuses. If someone disappears and comes back like nothing happened, block, delete, and move on. That's not strength, and that's self-respect. Now I know this is hard, because you're wired to fix, to help, to be the bigger person. You've been conditioned to be kind first, even when it costs you your sanity. You've been told to understand where he's coming from, more than you've been taught to ask, what about me? But the moment you decide to stop performing kindness for people who don't deserve it, you step into a whole new level of power. The power to walk away from confusion, the power to say no and not apologize, the power to protect your peace like it's your life. Because guess what? It is. And for those of you saying, but what if he changes? Let me ask you something. Has he? And if he does change, why should you have to suffer through all the versions of him that didn't treat you right? And you deserve someone who respects you the first time, not someone who needs 10 chances to figure it out. You deserve a relationship that feels like peace, not chaos, like clarity and not guessing games. So no, this isn't about hating men. It's about loving yourself more than you love their potential. It's about being wise with your energy. It's about saying, and I've done the inner work. I've healed, I've grown, I've learned. And now, I'm no longer available for one-sided kindness. Let the world call it cold. Let them say you're too harsh. Let them label you as too much. But do not let them break you. Stop being kind to men who confuse kindness with weakness. Start being kind to yourself. Start being kind to your future. And start being kind to the version of you who's still healing from all the damage caused by giving too much to people who gave you too little. You don't need to be nicer. You need to be clearer. You need to be firmer. You need to draw lines and enforce them. You need to stop explaining your standards and start expecting them. And from this moment on, let your kindness be earned. Let your love be protected. Let your heart be guarded. Not closed, but wise. Let your energy be sacred. Let your standards be non-negotiable. You owe it to yourself. And that's not selfish. That's survival. You've been taught that being kind is the right thing to do. From the time you were a child, you were rewarded when you were polite, smiled through discomfort, and kept the peace. You were told that kindness is a virtue. And it is. But here's what they didn't teach you: kindness without boundaries is not a virtue. It's a form of self-abandonment. And it's a slow leak of your power. It's betraying yourself over and over again just to keep someone else comfortable. We live in a world that praises kindness in women, especially when that kindness is quiet, soft, and accommodating. You're applauded when you're understanding, when you forgive quickly, when you give people the benefit of the doubt, even when they've given you nothing but excuses. You're encouraged to be empathetic, even when someone is clearly taking advantage of you. You're expected to always see the best in others while they show you the worst parts of themselves. And at some point, you started confusing kindness with tolerance. But those are not the same thing. Kindness is intentional. Kindness is powerful. Kindness is knowing who you are and choosing to act from a place of strength. But when you give it without limits, without standards, without awareness, you're not being kind anymore. You're being submissive. You're abandoning yourself. And you're silencing the voice inside you that says, "This doesn't feel right." You're choosing to please others at the cost of your own peace. And let's be real, and most people who exploit your kindness don't see it as kindness. They see it as weakness. They see it as an invitation to take more, to expect more, to push further. Because every time you say, "It's okay," when it's not, every time you give someone another chance they haven't earned, and every time you show up for someone who doesn't show up for you, you're teaching them how to treat you. You're showing them that your boundaries are flexible, that your time is disposable, that your needs don't matter as much as theirs. And eventually, you start believing it too. You start believing that being a good woman means being endlessly available, that loving someone means accepting whatever they give you, no matter how little, that being kind means not speaking up, not walking away, not demanding more. But let me tell you something, that's not kindness. That's self-sacrifice dressed up in polite language. That's fear of rejection wrapped in a smile. That's you betraying yourself every single time you prioritize someone else's comfort over your own clarity. You are not here to be nice at your own expense. You are not here to absorb other people's immaturity, their irresponsibility, their lack of growth. You are not a doormat. You are not a fixer. You are not a therapist for emotionally unavailable people who want your softness but not your standards. And every time you convince yourself that being kind means keeping the peace, and you're actually creating a war inside yourself, you're suppressing your own truth. You're ignoring your intuition. You're silencing your power. Let me ask you, how many times have you said yes when you really meant no? How many times have you gone along with something that didn't feel good just because you didn't want to be rude? And how many times have you let someone come back into your life who had already shown you they didn't value, just because you wanted to be the bigger person? How many times have you tolerated behavior that drained, disrespected you, or devalued you, all in the name of kindness? And how did that work out for you? Because here's the truth. The more you betray yourself, the more disconnected you become. Disconnected from your confidence. Disconnected from your purpose. Disconnected from the voice inside you that says, "I deserve better than this." And the more you ignore that voice, the louder the consequences become. You feel exhausted. You feel bitter. And you start resenting the very people you're trying to be kind to. Why? Because you're pouring from an empty cup. Because you've been stretching yourself, so then trying to be everything for everyone. And in the process, You've become nothing for yourself. This isn't about becoming hard. It's about becoming wise. It's about recognizing that real kindness includes yourself. It includes your well-being. It includes your standards. If your version of kindness excludes you, it's not kindness. It's people-pleasing. It's fear. It's conditioning. And you have the right to unlearn it. You don't owe your softness to people who weaponize it. You don't owe your grace to people who repeatedly disrespect it. You don't owe your time, your energy, your presence to anyone who treats it like it's disposable. And the moment you start recognizing your own value, the moment you start treating your time like gold, your presence like power, and your heart like royalty, is the moment you stop betraying yourself. Boundaries are not walls. They're clarity. They're honesty. They're the sacred lines that protect you from drowning in other people's dysfunction. They are acts of love, for you and for others. Because when you set a boundary, you're saying, I love myself enough to protect my peace, and I respect you enough to be honest about what I can and cannot accept. And listen, I get it. Setting boundaries feels uncomfortable at first. Saying no feels awkward. Walking away feels scary, especially when you've been trained to equate kindness with compliance. But growth doesn't happen in comfort zones, and freedom doesn't come without friction. If being kind is costing you your identity, your peace, your confidence, it's too expensive. It's okay to outgrow the version of you that was always available, always agreeable, always putting others first. That version of you did the best she could with what she knew. But now you know better. Now you know that self-abandonment is not a noble act. Now you know that shrinking yourself to make others feel big only makes you disappear. And now you know that your kindness means nothing if it's not rooted in self-respect. And here's what's powerful: the moment you stop betraying yourself in the name of being kind, your entire world starts to change. You attract different people. You make different choices. You stop tolerating confusion. You stop negotiating with red flags. And you stop being the one who always bends just to keep others from breaking. Because you've finally realized you're not here to make everyone else comfortable. You're here to be real, to be whole, to be grounded in your truth. You get to decide how your kindness is used. You get to decide who earns your energy. You get to decide when to give and when to walk away. And that doesn't make you cruel. That makes you conscious. That makes you powerful. That makes you someone who refuses to live her life constantly betraying her own needs in the name of someone else's comfort. So if you've been stuck in that cycle, if you've been saying yes to everyone but yourself, if you've been stretching yourself thin to keep the peace, and if you've been choosing kindness over honesty, it's time to stop. It's time to get honest. It's time to pull your kindness back from people who don't honor it. It's time to start being kind to yourself. You don't need to apologize for your standards. You don't need to feel guilty for protecting your energy. You don't need to justify why you're no longer available for relationships that drain you. The only person you owe an explanation to is yourself. And if you listen closely, she's already telling you, stop betraying me. Start choosing me. Start showing up for me the way you've shown up for everyone else. Because the most powerful act of kindness you can ever give is the one you give to yourself. Let's have a real conversation. One you might not had with yourself yet. Every time you keep showing up for someone who consistently shows you they don't value you, every time you overextend for someone who underdelivers, every time you make space for someone who brings chaos, confusion, or inconsistency, you are making a statement. You are telling the world and yourself that their behavior is okay, that what they're doing is acceptable, that your energy, your love, your presence is available even when someone is bringing nothing but disrespect, drama, or bare minimum effort. That's not love. That's not loyalty. That's a misuse of your power. And the truth is, you train people how to treat you by what you tolerate. And if you are constantly giving your best energy to people who don't show up for you, who only call when they want something, who make you question your worth, your value, your sanity, you are not being generous. You are not being kind. You are rewarding bad behavior, and what you reward gets repeated. So let's call it what it is. If someone keeps ghosting you and you keep letting them back in with no accountability, you're rewarding bad behavior. If someone keeps crossing your boundaries and you stay quiet to avoid conflict, you're rewarding bad behavior. If someone only reaches out when it's convenient for them and you respond like they've been consistent all along, you're rewarding bad behavior. And the longer you do this, the more you normalize dysfunction, not just in your relationships, but in your own mind. It becomes a pattern. You start second-guessing yourself. You start saying things like, and maybe I'm being too sensitive, or they're just going through a lot right now, or they don't mean it that way. And before you know it, and you're justifying behavior that you would never advise anyone else to tolerate. Why? Because you're trying to make a connection work that clearly isn't rooted in mutual respect. Because you're hoping that if you give more, love more, stay longer, they'll finally show up the way you need. But they won't. Not if they don't have to. Not if you keep making it easy for them to avoid growth. Not if you keep rewarding the behavior you're secretly praying will change. Let's get something straight. Your energy is a currency, and every time you invest it into people who give you stress, doubt, mixed signals, or emotional whiplash, you're throwing away your most valuable resource. You're draining yourself for people who wouldn't do the same for you. You're showing up full while they show up empty. And eventually, that imbalance catches up with you. You start feeling anxious, exhausted, burned out, because deep down you know you deserve better, but you're acting like you don't. We don't rise by handing out full access to people who only bring crumbs. We don't grow by enabling people to stay emotionally lazy. And we don't build healthy relationships by pretending we're okay with being an afterthought. If someone's words and actions don't line up, believe the actions. If someone says they care but shows no consistency, believe what they do, not what they say. If someone is hot and cold, in and out, up and down, and you keep showing up steady, loyal, giving your all, you're training them to believe that their inconsistency is acceptable, that they don't have to better because you'll always be there anyway, and that they don't have to grow because you'll keep making excuses for them. This is not about becoming heartless. It's about becoming smart. It's about having standards. It's about recognizing that love without boundaries leads to resentment. That overgiving is not a virtue when it comes at the expense of your own emotional well-being. That you don't need to keep performing, proving, or pleasing just to be worthy of respect. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. You are not here to heal people who refuse to even admit they're bleeding. You are not someone's backup plan, emotional punching bag, or late night option. And the moment you stop giving your best energy to people who give you the least effort, you create space for something healthier, for something reciprocal, for something that doesn't leave you questioning yourself after every interaction. But that space won't exist if you keep filling it with people who take more than they give, who drain more than they pour, who confuse you more than they ground you. You can't expect peace if you keep inviting chaos. You can't expect clarity if you keep entertaining confusion. You can't expect real love if you keep clinging to potential. Because potential is not a guarantee. And it's not your job to be someone's wake-up call. If they haven't changed by now, and chances are they won't, not because they can't, but because they don't have to. And you keep being the one who stays, who waits, who forgives without correction, who loves without boundaries. And I get it. I know what it's like to want to believe the best in someone, to hope that if you're just a little more patient, a little more understanding, a little more loyal, they'll finally come around. But that hope is costing you. It's costing you sleep. It's costing you peace. And it's costing you years of your life that you can't get back. All because you keep giving away your best energy to someone who doesn't value it. It's time to take responsibility for your choices, for your patterns, for your energy. You are not a victim of someone else's inconsistency. You're a participant in the cycle if you keep showing up without requiring change. And you don't break that cycle by waiting for them to grow. You break it by growing yourself, by realizing that protecting your energy is not selfish. It's essential. And that saying no is not mean. It's mature. That walking away is not weakness. It's wisdom. So look at your life. Look at the people in it. Ask yourself who gets the best of me and who only gives the bare minimum in return, who makes deposits into my life and who's just here to withdraw, who actually shows up when it matters and who disappears when it's inconvenient. Then adjust accordingly, not with bitterness, not with anger, but with clarity, with courage, with self-respect. Because here's what happens when you stop rewarding bad behavior with your best energy. You reclaim your power. You stop chasing people who were never meant to be in your life for the long haul. You stop begging for attention, approval, and love from people who are emotionally unavailable. You stop exhausting yourself trying to get someone to choose you. And instead, you start choosing yourself. You start pouring into people who pour back. You start recognizing red flags and taking action instead of rationalizing them. You start building a life where your peace is the priority, not the afterthought. And you stop feeling guilty for removing access from people who clearly don't deserve it. That's not pettiness. That's progress. That's growth. So if you've been tired, drained, stuck, ask yourself who's been getting your best energy and what have they done to deserve it? If the answer is not much, it's time to pull back. It's time to recenter. It's time to stop watering dead plants, hoping they'll bloom. Some people are not meant to go with you into your next season, and that's okay. But what's not okay is sacrificing your emotional health just to keep them around. Start noticing who gets excited about your boundaries and who gets offended by them. Start noticing who steps up when you stop overfunctioning. Start noticing who actually values you once you stop being their emotional crutch. The ones who respect you will rise, and the ones who don't, they'll fall away. Either way, you win. Because you stopped rewarding bad behavior. You stopped making excuses for what you know isn't right. And you started acting like someone who knows what her energy is worth. You don't need to fight, argue, or beg. You just need to stop showing up. You just need to stop responding with grace when what's called for is distance. You just need to recognize that silence can be more powerful than explanation. That boundaries can be more effective than second chances. That absence can say what words never could. When you stop rewarding bad behavior with your best energy, you don't just change your relationships. You change your life. You teach the world that you are no longer available for chaos, no longer available for confusion, no longer available for connections that require you to shrink, to chase, to compromise your self-worth. You are done. You are awake. And you are finally choosing you. There comes a moment when you stop waiting for someone to understand the damage they caused, waiting for them to see your worth, waiting for the apology that might never come. And in that moment, something shifts. You realize that your healing, your peace, your self-worth, they were never supposed to be held hostage by someone else's awareness. That moment is when self-respect speaks louder than apologies. We live in a world where, I'm sorry, is often thrown around like a band-aid. But apologies without changed behavior, and that's manipulation, that's performance, that's noise. Words are cheap when they're not backed by action. And you don't need a long speech, a dramatic apology, or a grand gesture from someone who knew better and still chose to hurt you. What you need is to look in the mirror and say, I'm done. Done accepting crumbs. Done explaining yourself. Done giving out endless grace while disrespect becomes the pattern. Because every time you allow someone to enter your life without accountability, you turn down the volume on your own self-respect. You want to know what real power looks like. It's not in confrontation. It's in walking away without a scene. It's in pulling back without announcing it. It's in no longer needing to be understood by someone who never truly tried. When you carry self-respect, you don't need revenge. You don't need them to finally get it. You don't need closure from the person who broke you. Because closure isn't something they give you. It's something you decide. It's a decision to stop negotiating your worth with people who are too blind to see it. Let's be honest. We've all been there, sitting in that space of emotional limbo, asking ourselves, why would they do that to me? And we get stuck. We replay the conversations. We overanalyze the silence. We shrink, thinking maybe if we were different, prettier, quieter, more patient, they would have treated us better. But that's the lie. The truth. It's not about you not being enough. It's about them not having the capacity. And your self-respect isn't dependent on their ability to love you properly. It's dependent on your ability to love yourself even when they didn't. Apologies feel good, sure, but they don't fix patterns. They don't erase manipulation, gaslighting, betrayal, neglect. What fixes things is changed behavior. What fixes things is accountability. What fixes things is ownership. And if they can't offer that, no matter how sorry they say they are, your next move has to come from a place of respect, not emotion. Because when you start leading with self-respect, you stop chasing people and start choosing peace. You stop waiting for validation and start giving it to yourself. You stop accepting temporary comfort in exchange for long-term pain. Look at the last time someone hurt you. Really think about it. Did they apologize, or did they just try to smooth things over? Did they acknowledge the impact of their actions, or did they just try to silence your reaction? There's a difference. A massive one. And real apologies don't just say, I'm sorry. They say, I get it, and I'll do better. Real apologies don't make you feel guilty for being hurt. They take responsibility for causing the hurt. But if someone keeps saying, sorry, and nothing changes, you need to stop listening to the apology and start listening to the pattern. Patterns speak louder than words. Repeated behavior is the truth, and your self-respect, it should be the filter. If someone's actions don't align with your standards, your boundaries, your values, you walk. Not because you're cold, not because you're unforgiving, but because you've learned that keeping someone in your life who disrespects you slowly teaches you disrespect yourself. You don't owe access to someone just because they feel bad. Feeling bad isn't the same as making things right. And let's talk about forgiveness, because this is where people get stuck. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Forgiveness doesn't mean giving them another chance. Forgiveness, you refuse to carry the weight of their wrongdoing. You let it go, not to excuse them, but to free yourself. But even after forgiveness, you can still walk away. You can still choose distance. You can still protect your peace. Because self-respect says, I wish you well, but I won't give you another opportunity to hurt me. It's not your job to teach grown adults how to treat people. It's not your responsibility to wait around until they evolve. It's not noble to keep sacrificing your emotional well-being for someone who hasn't shown any commitment to growth. That's not love. That's self-abandonment. And if you're always the one doing the work, doing the forgiving than the understanding, ask yourself, what are they doing? And if the answer is not much, it's time to change the narrative. You have a say in this. You get to decide who gets access to you. You get to set the tone for how people treat you. And the moment you stop prioritizing their feelings over your self-worth, everything shifts. You stop showing up out of guilt. You stop replying out of habit. You stop explaining yourself to people who have already made up their minds. You reclaim your time, your energy, your power. And you don't need to scream it from the rooftops. You don't need to announce it on social media. You just need to be done. Quietly, confidently, completely done. That's what self-respect looks like. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's steady. It's consistent. It's knowing that not everyone deserves a seat at your table, especially if they've proven they can't be trusted with your heart. We glorify second chances. We glamorize forgiveness without accountability. We idolize the idea of holding on because maybe they'll change. But sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away and never look back, not to punish them, but to protect yourself. Because staying in relationships where your self-respect is constantly compromised isn't strength, it's fear. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of the unknown. But what's on the other side of that fear? Peace, confidence, clarity. You've got one life, one shot at building a life that feels good to wake up to. Don't waste it stuck in cycles with people who only know how to take, and who apologize with their lips but continue to hurt you with their actions, who drain you, distract you, and keep you from becoming the person you're meant to be. You don't rise by shrinking for someone else's comfort. You don't heal by staying in environments that cause the wound. You don't grow by staying stuck in relationships that demand your silence in exchange for approval. Self-respect is a standard, not a slogan. It's not a moment. It's a mindset. It shows up in how you talk to yourself, how you enforce boundaries, how you stop explaining your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. It's choosing to say, "This isn't enough for me," and actually meaning it. It's not compromising with someone who can't meet you halfway. It's not settling for a version of love that leaves you confused, exhausted, and insecure. And yes, it's going to be hard. You're going to miss them. You're going to doubt yourself. And you're going to wonder if maybe you should have stayed. But you'll survive. You'll heal. And one day you'll look back and be so proud that you chose you, that you didn't keep letting people come and go as they please, that you finally said, "I deserve more," and acted like it. That's when everything changes. And that's when your energy shifts. That's when your life starts aligning with your worth. Not because someone apologized, but because you stopped needing them to. And because you decided that your peace, your value, your voice are not up for negotiation. That's what self-respect sounds like. Trust me, it's louder, stronger, and more transformative than any apology could ever be. And you don't need another warning sign. You don't need another gut feeling. You don't need someone else to tell you that your peace is worth protecting. You already know. Deep down, you already feel it. The tightness in your chest when the wrong people enter the room, the fatigue that creeps in when you say, "Ah, yes," to something you didn't want to do, and the unease that follows you after an argument you never should have had in the first place. That's your spirit speaking. That's your inner wisdom waving a red flag. And it's trying to tell you this moment, this decision, this person. It's costing your peace. You can't keep treating your peace like an afterthought. And you can't keep sacrificing your inner stability to keep the appearance of external calm. That's not peace. That's performance. And performance will leave you exhausted. It'll leave you pretending everything's okay while silently falling apart. It'll leave you drained, frustrated, angry, and worst of all, numb. Peace is not something you find when the world finally quiets down. Peace is something you protect when the world refuses to. It's the boundary you build when someone starts to cross a line. It's the pause you give yourself before reacting. It's the moment you choose not to engage in a battle that isn't yours. It's not about being passive. It's about being intentional. It's about recognizing that your energy, your emotions, your mental state, they're sacred ground, and not everyone deserves access. And let's be honest, if you don't protect it, someone will come in and trample all over it. The wrong people will gladly steal your time, disrupt your rhythm, derail your mindset, because they have no stake in your peace, and they're not responsible for your clarity. You are. So when someone keeps bringing chaos to your calm and you keep letting them in, that's on you. When you keep revisiting toxic conversations, environments, or habits, knowing they mess with your soul, you're handing over the keys to your peace like it's nothing. But it's everything. And protecting your peace means understanding that not every invitation deserves an RSVP, that not every conversation deserves a reply, that not every insult deserves a comeback, that not every relationship deserves another chance. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is disengage, walk away, choose silence, choose solitude, choose serenity over the need to be right, liked, or included. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't argue. It doesn't chase. It doesn't need validation. It just is. And when you start treating it like the sacred thing it is, your entire life shifts. You stop getting pulled into pointless arguments. You stop saying, yes, out of guilt or obligation. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop fighting to be seen by people who are emotionally blind. Instead, you start choosing your peace. You start guarding your mornings like they're holy ground. You start choosing who gets your energy and who doesn't. You start saying no without a novel-length explanation. You start leaving spaces that don't feel safe. You start letting people feel whatever they need to feel about your boundaries, because your peace matters more than their approval. And yes, some people will be uncomfortable with this version of you. They'll call you distant. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're cold or too sensitive. But what they're really saying is, I liked you better when you abandoned yourself for me. They're uncomfortable because your peace exposes their chaos, and your boundaries expose their entitlement. Your calm rattles their dysfunction. And that's okay. That's not your problem to solve. The real problem. And you spent too long betraying yourself to maintain relationships that should have expired a long time ago. You spent too long pretending that things didn't bother you. You spent too long showing up for people who made you feel invisible. You spent too long being accessible to people who were emotionally unavailable. And that's the cycle you're breaking now. You don't owe anyone your peace. You don't owe anyone your inner stillness just to keep them from getting upset. That's not peacekeeping. That's self-abandonment. And let me be clear, and the people who love you, who truly see you, who care about your growth, they won't get offended when you choose peace. They'll support it. They'll honor it because they're doing the same in their own lives. But you have to lead. You have to show up for yourself first. That means checking in with yourself before saying eyes. That means listening to your body when it tightens around certain people or places. That means understanding that your mental clarity is not up for negotiation. You don't need to carry someone else's emotional baggage to be a good person. You don't need to absorb someone else's projections to prove your love. You don't need to set yourself on fire to keep anyone warm. Protect your peace like it's sacred because it is. It's what allows you to show up clear, focused, grounded. It's what keeps your dreams from getting buried under distractions. It's what gives you the capacity to love without losing yourself. It's what reminds you that not everything requires your attention, that not everything needs your reaction, that sometimes silence is the loudest message you'll ever send. So look around. What's stealing your peace right now? Is it a relationship that always leaves you doubting yourself? Is it a habit that chips away at your confidence? Is it a job that drains you or a friend who only calls when they need something? Whatever it is, it's time to confront it. Not with rage, not with blame, but with resolve, with clarity, with boundaries that are no longer negotiable. And remember this, choosing peace doesn't mean your life becomes perfect. It means you stop participating in chaos. It means you stop feeding drama with your time and attention. It means you stop playing small just to avoid conflict. Peace doesn't promise a pain-free life, but it does promise power, the power to choose how you respond, how you live, and who you allow in your space. If something threatens your peace, It's too expensive. If someone keeps disrupting your calm, it's time to evaluate the access they have to you. If your own thoughts are stealing your serenity, it's time to retrain your focus. Because peace isn't passive, it's active. It requires discipline. It requires intentionality. It requires you to get clear on what matters and what doesn't, and to build a life that honors that clarity. You don't have to attend every emotional battle you're invited to. You don't have to prove yourself to people who don't even know who they are. You don't have to defend your healing, your growth, your progress. Protect your peace like it's sacred. Because the moment you start treating it that way, your life will begin to align with that decision. People who can't handle your boundaries will naturally fade out. And then those who are meant for you will rise up, meet you there, and join you in the calm. Would you like me to now expand? Self-respect is louder than apologies into the next 1,500 word segment in the same style.